I got an email from a monastic friend who lives in a community where the center of the community is the study program, and so they don't quite live together in the same way we do. They have much more freedom to come and go and do what they want when they want to, and you know, financially they don't work together as a community the way we do, where everything is, you know, supported by the Abbey. So it's a different style. So, so she said, I have found since living in this monastic community that I am struggling with a very judgmental mind. So-and-so doesn't pull their weight. So-and-so doesn't go to class. So-and-so spends too much time with family. I'm sure you can imagine. I realize this is all part of learning to live in a more independent community. And then she says, and yes, I often miss the structure and discipline of the Abbey. Do you have any advice for how I can curb this habit? I can see that it causes me suffering, which I often project onto others, but it seems difficult to talk about it here where people all want to do their own thing. I would appreciate any thoughts or suggestions you may have. Okay, so part of the difficulty is that they don't have a community structure which holds them together, and so that makes it difficult for to say anything, because that would involve changing the structure, which it doesn't seem like anybody wants to do. So, you know, but aside from that, having a critical, judgmental mind of other monastics also happens in a structured community like ours, doesn't it? And you know what? It also happens to people who are lay people, you know, working in jobs and going to school. So the critical, judgmental mind is just all over the place, okay? And I remember when I was a new nun, just being very critical of the Sangha that I saw, the Western Sangha. I remember when I was a new nun, I saw somebody reading a Thai magazine and I was just scandalized. Now, my ideas have changed, but you know, how this mind comes up of just, oh dare they read a Thai magazine. You know, but this idea of you know, knowing, especially if I talk about it in a monastic context, we kind of know what our precepts are. We know what is good for spiritual practice. You know, we know the instructions of our teachers that, you know, everybody in the community is held, whether you live in an independent kind of community or a more structured one like we have. So you know all of this. And then when you see people not following those instructions, or, you know, kind of, yeah, not following those instructions, then it's very easy for our own mind to get a negative spin on it, and like, well, what aren't they? I mean, just why aren't they? I mean, this is the way you're supposed to practice Dharma if you want to get anywhere, and you know, why aren't they just practicing like they said they were going to? Yeah, so our mind can get quite negative. So I think when I look inside, why that happens is because it may happen for a few different reasons. One reason is we need support, and so we need people who are living in the way that we want to live, so that their way of living and practicing aids as a support to ours. Whereas if we're living with people who aren't practicing in that way, then our need for good examples and for role models is not getting met. And instead it becomes easier for us to slip and slide. And we're afraid of that. And we need the role models, so our mind gets critical of the other people, like, why aren't you being the role model that I need you to be? Okay? That could be one reason. Another reason is some people like things to be very predictable, very orderly, and then when people are not predictable and orderly, then they get very uncomfortable and they get angry, and the critical, judgmental mind comes out, you know, because their need is for predictability and order. Okay? So there could be many other needs that are, you know, what do you think are some other needs that aren't being met when, you know, when our mind gets critical and judgmental about other community members? Another one, I mean, could be that we need support in whatever job we're doing, and when people aren't doing their job, then it affects us because we need support and we need cooperation, and we're trying to do something and the piece we need isn't coming in because somebody's gone to visit their parents, or, you know, decided to sleep in, or, you know, whatever it is they're doing. Yeah, what else do you think could be unmet needs?
Maybe it could be if somebody is not kind of following the form, that could evoke in a person fear that they won't be able to do it either.
Okay, so that's a similar thing of we need good role models. We need to know that it's possible to keep the form and be a happy, relaxed individual. And if we can't see anybody doing that, then we get afraid we won't be able to do it either. Yeah.
Also similar to what you had said, that I think at a deeper level there's maybe a need for trust, that we all agree that we wanted to live in this way. And so when we start not agree, then the level of trust and confidence in our agreements goes wobbly.
Yeah, okay, so there's a need for trust, and if there's been an agreement to live in a certain way, and then then people aren't doing it, then our trust in those people wavers.
And even in the agreements.
Oh, yeah, our trust in the viability of the agreement can waver. And that can cause really a lot of doubt about, can we practice? Can we go ahead? Can this sustain itself? Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It fits a little. Actually, it's the same, but more if somebody has a bigger picture. For example, one wants to establish something like a nano-land, then people don't. First, they go in this direction, but then they turn around. So then the whole picture, your whole vision,
changes. Okay, so since the working towards a vision of what you're creating, it's a similar thing. You have the same focus, and then when it seems like other people aren't going in that direction, then what you wanted to create and what you believe in, you know, starts to shake. You know, because you want to see, you need to see a certain vision actualized. Yeah, and you need some reliability and trust. Yeah. You had something?
I was thinking that there's a need, this is from experience, need for self-evaluation for one's own holding of that vision and those guidelines. I know when I'm poking around making judgments of other people, if I'm very honest with myself, I'm slipping and sliding, maybe not where they are, but I'm slipping and sliding in another area.
Yeah.
And I'm using that almost as a distraction.
Okay. Okay. So that what you're saying is sometimes the critical, judgmental mind comes because we ourselves are slipping and sliding, maybe not in the same area that we're saying those people are, but we're, rather than confront what we're doing and work with it, and not confront it in a harsh way, but just be honest with ourselves. Just be honest with ourselves that we're getting a little lax. Then we project it onto other people.
That's a form of distraction.
Yeah,
and denial.
right. It distracts us. Yeah, So then it's about fixing them. Yeah.
I was thinking that one thing might be for sort of a, I feel most judgmental when I've been criticized, or when I've been, let's drop the word criticized, but I've been sort of reminded about some policy, and then I see someone else doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So then I sort of, I'm like, well, if this person can do it, then why can't I do it? You know, like this sort of mind.
Okay. So, sometimes we, yeah, like you said, if we are, you know, reminded to do or not do something, and then we see somebody else doing that, then we get really angry and rebellious. And, well, why can they do it and I can't? Yeah, but what is the need there?
I think for integrity.
For?
Integrity.
For integrity. Okay.
Or maybe sort of like an equanimity kind of.
Yeah, equality, although, you know, different people in a monastery have different responsibilities, so the way they do or not do something is going to be different.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, if we're feeling judgmental, we're not thinking clearly in the first place.
Right, right, exactly, exactly. So again, there the judgment is focused at it distracting us from looking at ourselves by being so, well, they're doing it, what about them and what about them? And so it's a defense mechanism so that we don't say, but how about me? Yeah. Okay, so there's a number of different things, and we can think about it. We may come up with even more where there are some needs, you know, that we have that aren't getting fulfilled. Okay, so, but then when you think that the mind that criticizes, especially the Sangha, that mind creates so much negative karma. I mean, horrible negative karma criticizing the Sangha. So then you're up against your own judgmental mind, which you're sure is right and you have a reason, and yet the fact that you're creating negative karma at the same time. Have you ever felt like that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, you know, certain remedies to that could be, you know, focusing on ourselves and, you know, if we're slipping and sliding in some areas. But also, before sometimes we can correct that, we have to be kind of gentle with ourselves. And I think, for me, I know it was important to acknowledge I need role models and I need support. And that's something important to me, you know. And that's why I'm feeling this, okay? That doesn't mean my feeling is correct, but it explains that in my deluded way, that's why that anger is coming up. But then some ways to counteract that, I think, are to look at the other people and say they are doing the best they can. Yeah, they have karmic impediments or afflictions, the weight of afflictions that I don't have, and that's you know, that is what's pushing them to act in this way. And although I'm not getting the support I need, it's not because these people are bad, it's because they are up against their own limitations. Yeah, so rather than get angry at them because they're limited, let's see if I can have some compassion for them. Yeah, and some compassion that, gee, they have that limitation, they have that blindness, they have that obstacle, you know, they have whatever it is that's taking them away from following the, you know, the instructions or the precepts. And you know, right now I'm a little bit fortunate that I don't have that same kind of thing in that particular area. And so while I don't have that obstacle, let me, you know, really practice well. Instead of saying, well, they should be like me, or, well, if they aren't doing it, that means I don't have to do it either. neither of which are very helpful, because it's this whole thing of comparing ourselves to others that really becomes quite problematic. Okay. I think also looking at people's good qualities and what they do, you know, and like you're saying, that you might say, well, I was just reminded to do that, and they're not doing it, but they are doing maybe some other things that we aren't doing. Yeah. And because they're doing those other things, they, you know, need to do whatever it is, you know. They don't have the same chore rota because they're doing something else in service to the community. Yeah. And so, in other words, to look at what people are doing and look at what their good qualities are, so that we really can see them as people who are trying the best they can within their own limitations. And then to meet our need for support or trust, you know, these kinds of things, I think a lot of that depends on being sure ourselves of what we're doing. And it, you know, Lama Zopa always talks about, you know, I'll go to the hell realms for the benefit of I'll liberate all sentient beings by myself alone. And sometimes I wonder why by myself alone, you know, it's like, well, there's lots of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, can't they kind of help me? But I think, you know, when you train your mind to think in that way, then you take responsibility for your practice without making your practice influenced by the fluctuations of others. So whether others practice well or not, whether they follow the instructions or not, whether they keep the precepts or not, doesn't influence me. You know, I meet my needs for predictability and continuity and trust and good example by doing what I know inside of myself I need to do, you know. And I, of course, don't meet all the expectations and do all the things that I certainly would like to do, yeah. But I should try my best without getting bummed out because others aren't doing it, or without letting myself backslide because others aren't doing what I'm doing. You know, I think the by myself alone means I have clarity in my own mind, and I'm just going to go ahead. Because at the end of the day, what other people do and don't do doesn't influence whether I have a good rebirth, whether I attain liberation, whether I become a Buddha. What they do and don't do only affects them. They're the ones who create the karma by doing or not doing these different things. If they don't follow the instructions, if they don't try hard, if they're whatever, they're the ones who experience the result of it, not me. Okay? So to have that kind of sense of integrity inside of ourselves and go ahead, regardless of what other people do. And with compassion for them, because, you know, of whatever they're limited by. So we'll stop here, and if you come up with some more ideas and more antidotes, then we can talk about it tomorrow too. We'll see.